The saloon door swung open with a creak that cut through the tobacco smoke and whiskey-soaked laughter. Every head turned as I stepped inside, my boots clicking against the warped floorboards. The Silver Dollar Saloon wasn't a place for women like me, married women who should be home darning socks and baking bread. But desperation has a way of rewriting the rules. My name is Elizabeth Eliza to those who dare speak familiar. 26 years old, married 3 years to Victor Hale, the man who owned half the cattle in Red Mesa and most of the fear in folks' hearts. The wedding ring on my finger caught the lamplight, heavy as a shackle. Well, well. Victor's voice boomed from the poker table in the corner. Look what the wind blew in. His face was already flushed with drink, eyes glittering mean the way they did before things went bad. Come to fetch your husband home. Have you? I kept my chin up, though my knees trembled beneath my skirts. I came for the household money. Martha needs paying. The saloon fell quiet. Even the piano player let his hands hover over the keys. Victor's laugh was ugly, like breaking glass. My wife, gentlemen, thinks she can waltz into a man's establishment and make demands. He pushed back from the table, chair scraping harsh against the floor. My heart hammered as he crossed the room. I knew that walk controlled but coiled, like a rattler before it strikes. The other patrons looked away. Nobody interfered with Victor Hale's business, especially not his family business. You embarrass me, he hissed, close enough that I could smell the bourbon on his breath. Coming here like some common A. The slap echoed through the saloon like a gunshot. My cheek burned, tears springing to my eyes despite my best efforts. But it wasn't the pain that broke something inside me, it was the laughter. A few of the men chuckled, nervous and ugly. This was entertainment to them. My humiliation was just another story to tell over tomorrow's whiskey. That's enough. The voice came from near the bar, deep and steady as distant thunder. A man unfolded himself from where he'd been leaning, setting down his glass with a deliberate calm. Roland Prescott folks called him Rye. I knew him by reputation, only owned the Diamond P Ranch, had a talent for breaking horses and a reputation for recklessness that kept most people at arm's length. Victor turned, his hand still raised. This ain't your concern, Prescott. Maybe not. Rye stepped forward, spurs jingling soft. He was taller than Victor, broader in the shoulders, with sun-weathered skin and eyes the color of winter sky. But I find myself concerned anyway. The tension stretched taut as fence wire. I pressed my palm to my stinging cheek, watching these two men size each other up like bulls in a pen. Victor's men shifted at the poker table, hands drifting toward their guns. You want to defend this woman's honor? Victor's smile was all teeth. She's my wife, my property, same as my horse or my land. Last I checked, Rye said, mild as milk. We fought a war about owning people. Someone sucked in a breath. Fighting words. Those... Victor's face went from red to purple. You comparing me to... I'm saying the lady asked for household money. Give it to her and let her go. Let her go. Those 3 words hung in the air like a promise, like a key turning in a lock I didn't even know was there. Our eyes met across the smoky room, mine wide with shock, his steady and sure. Something passed between us in that moment, quick as lightning and just as dangerous. Victor laughed again, but there was no humor in it. You don't give me orders on my own property, Prescott. He grabbed my wrist, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. Come on, wife, we're going home. No. The word escaped before I could stop it. Such a small word, but it changed everything. Victor's grip tightened until I gasped. What did you say? I said no. My voice shook, but I forced myself to meet his eyes. I'm not going home with you. Not tonight, not ever again. The silence was deafening. Then Victor backhanded me. Harder this time. I stumbled. Would have fallen if Rye hadn't caught my arm. The contact burned through my sleeve. Gentle, but firm. That's twice, Rye said, and now his voice had lost all its easy calm. "There won't be a third." Victor reached for his gun, but Rye was faster, not drawing, just placing his hand on his Colt's handle. "Casual as you please. You really want to do this here now over a woman you clearly don't treasure." Sheriff Jonah Mercer chose that moment to push through the saloon doors, tall and gray-haired, wearing his star like it weighed 100 pounds. He took in the scene with tired eyes. "Evening, folks. Seems we have a disturbance." "No disturbance," Victor said, smooth as silk. "Just collecting my wife." Jonah's gaze lingered on my reddened cheek, then shifted to where Rye still held my arm. Something flickered in the sheriff's expression. Recognition. Regret. He cleared his throat. "Mrs. Hale, are you hurt?" I opened my mouth, then closed it. What could I say that my husband hit me? Everyone had seen it. That I wanted to leave, the law said I belonged to him, same as his cattle brand marked his property. "She's fine," Victor answered for me. "Aren't you, darling?" Jonah waited, giving me a chance to speak. Our eyes met, and for just a moment, I saw something unexpected there, understanding, maybe even sympathy. But what could he do? The law was the law. My voice caught. "I need a moment. Just a moment to collect myself." "Clara's boarding house is 2 doors down," the sheriff said carefully. "Mrs. Patterson keeps a room for ladies who need a quiet place to rest. No questions asked." Victor's face darkened. "My wife doesn't need—" "It's been a trying evening," Jonah interrupted, steel beneath his mild tone. "Perhaps everyone could use some time to cool off. Mr. Hale, I believe your poker game is waiting." For a heartbeat, violence trembled on the edge of breaking loose. Then Victor smiled, cold as winter wind. "Of course, Sheriff. My wife knows where to find me when she's ready to come home." His eyes bored into mine. "Don't you, Eliza?" I didn't answer, couldn't answer. Rye's hand was still on my arm, warm and steady, anchoring me to something I couldn't name. "I'll escort Mrs. Hale to Clara's." Rye said it wasn't a question. Victor's smile widened. "How gallant. But remember, Prescott, she's a married woman. My woman. That won't change just because you fancy yourself a hero." He turned on his heel and stalked back to his poker game, dismissing me like I was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. The other patrons slowly returned to their drinks and cards, though they kept shooting glances our way. Sheriff Mercer stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Eliza." The use of my given name made me look up sharp. "If you need, that is, the law may be limited, but there are always options. You understand." There was weight in those words, meaning I couldn't quite grasp, but I nodded anyway, too numb to do more. "Ma'am," Rye's voice was gentle. "Let me take you to Clara's." I let him guide me outside, into the cool October night. The stars sprawled overhead, endless and indifferent. Main Street was mostly empty, just a few cowboys heading home from their revels. The boarding house sign creaked in the wind. "Why?" I asked as we walked. "Why stand up for me? You don't even know me." He was quiet for a moment. "Maybe because I've seen enough men like your husband to last a lifetime. Maybe because watching someone get hurt and doing nothing makes a man smaller." He paused. "Or maybe because you said no, and that took more courage than most folks show in a lifetime." "It was foolish. He'll make me pay for it." Maybe, or maybe saying no was the first step to something else. We'd reached Clara's boarding house. Warm light spilled from the windows, and I could smell bread baking. Such ordinary comfort, but it nearly undid me. "I have some money," Rye said, reaching into his vest pocket. "Not charity, call it a loan if you must. Clara's good people. She'll keep you safe tonight while you figure things out. And tomorrow," he studied me in the lamplight, this stranger who'd stood up for me when no one else would. "Tomorrow you decide if one night of freedom is enough, or if you want more." The law says I belong to him. The law says a lot of things. Doesn't make them right. He pressed the money into my hand. I run cattle out at the Diamond P. Always need good help, if you find yourself looking for honest work. Before I could respond, he touched the brim of his hat and walked away, spurs ringing against the boardwalk. I stood there clutching his money, my cheek still burning from Victor's hand, my future as uncertain as prairie weather. But for the first time in 3 years, I felt something besides fear. It was small, fragile as a newborn calf, but unmistakable. Hope. I knocked on Clara's door, decision crystallizing like frost on glass. Victor would come for me tomorrow. The law would stand with him. The whole town would expect me to go back, to be a proper wife, to pretend this night never happened. But tonight, I was just Eliza, not Mrs. Hale, not anyone's property, just a woman with a borrowed handful of dollars and a glimpse of what freedom might taste like. The door opened, spilling golden light into the darkness. Clara Patterson stood there, gray hair in a nighttime braid, concern creasing her motherly face. Lord have mercy, child. Come in out of the cold. As I stepped over the threshold, I heard horses leaving the Silver Dollar. Victor going home without me. The sound should have terrified me. Instead, I felt that tiny spark of hope flare a little brighter. Tomorrow would bring its own troubles, but tonight I was free. Clara's kitchen smelled of cinnamon and strong coffee. I sat at her worn pine table, hands wrapped around a cup of tea, watching steam curl up like tiny prayers. The morning sun slanted through gingham curtains, painting everything golden and safe. But safety was an illusion we both knew Victor would come. Eat something, child. Clara set a plate of biscuits and honey before me. Can't face troubles on an empty stomach. I'd told her everything in the dark hours before dawn, words spilling out like water through a broken dam, about the bruises hidden beneath my sleeves, about the nights I'd lain awake, afraid to breathe too loud, about dreams of teaching school that died the day I said I do to Victor Hale. He owns half the town, I said, crumbling a biscuit I couldn't bring myself to eat. The judge plays poker at his table. The bank holds his notes. Where am I supposed to run? Clara's weathered hand covered mine. Sometimes running isn't about distance, Eliza. Sometimes it's about finding the right place to make your stand. A knock at the door made us both freeze. Clara squeezed my fingers before rising. Stay put. But I followed anyway. Hovering in the hallway shadows, through the parlor window, I glimpsed a familiar figure, tall, broad-shouldered, hat in hand. My heart did something complicated in my chest. Mr. Prescott, Clara said, opening the door just wide enough to be polite. Early for social calls, isn't it? Apologies, ma'am. I came to check on Mrs. Hale and to speak with her, if she's willing. Clara glanced back at me. I smoothed my borrowed dress, one of Clara's, too big in the shoulders, and stepped into view. Mr. Prescott. His eyes found the bruise on my cheek, now purple-green in the morning light. Something dark flickered across his face. Mrs. Hale, how are you faring? Well enough. The lie came automatic as breathing. Might we speak perhaps on the porch, Mrs.? Patterson can leave the door open if that's more proper. Clara nodded approval, and soon I found myself in one of her rocking chairs. The October morning crisp around us. Rye took the other chair, keeping a respectful distance. Your husband's been making noise at the Silver Dollar, he said without preamble, talking about dragging you home, teaching you proper wifely obedience. My stomach clenched. When? Soon as he sobers up. I expect man like Victor doesn't tolerate public defiance. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. That's why I'm here. The offer I made last night about work at the Diamond P, it stands. But you'd need to decide quick. You'd hire a married woman knowing the trouble it would bring. A wry smile touched his lips. Ma'am, I've got 800 head of cattle. 6 ranch hands who can barely boil water, and a cook who quit last month to try his luck in the goldfields. I need help, and something tells me you know your way around a kitchen. It's not that simple. Victor will come for me. He'll make trouble for you. Let him try. There was steel in his voice now. The Diamond P is my land, my rules, and I don't hold with men who hit women. I studied him in the morning light. His face was weathered, but not old, maybe 35 to my 26. Clean-shaven, with a thin scar along his jaw. His clothes were quality but practical. Speaking of a man who worked his own land rather than sitting idle. Why? I asked again. The real reason. He was quiet so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I had a sister once, Sarah, married a man who charmed everyone in town, including her. By the time we realized what he was behind closed doors, it was too late. She died in childbirth, but I always wondered if the baby came early because of the stress, the fear. His hands clenched and unclenched. I couldn't save her. Maybe I'm trying to balance those scales. The pain in his voice was old, but still sharp, like a break that hadn't healed right. I understood that kind of pain. If I come to your ranch, I said slowly, it has to be as an employee. Nothing more. I won't trade one cage for another. Wouldn't ask you to. You'll have your own room in the main house, former cook's quarters. Door locks from the inside, $30 a month plus board. Same as I'd pay any cook. He paused. And if Victor comes calling, he'll find the Diamond P isn't as welcoming as town. $30. Enough to save. Maybe enough to eventually buy stage fare to somewhere Victor's reach didn't extend. California. Maybe. Or Oregon territory. When? Now, if you're willing. I've got the wagon. We could stop by the mercantile for whatever supplies you need. Now, the word thrummed through me like lightning. But I don't have anything. No clothes except what Clara lent me. No money except what you gave me last night. That's what the mercantile stop is for. Call it an advance on wages. I rocked back, considering. Through the window, I could see Clara pretending not to watch while she dusted her already spotless parlor. Down the street, the town was waking up. Soon everyone would know Victor Hale's wife had spent the night away from home. The gossip would fly faster than telegraph wires. All right, I heard myself say. But we leave within the hour. Before liquid courage turns into liquid action, Rye finished. Agreed. The mercantile was nearly empty. Just old Mr. Garrett sweeping the steps. He goggled at us as we entered together, his broom pausing mid-stroke. I could practically see the gossip forming behind his eyes. Mrs. Hale, he managed. Mr. Prescott, fine morning. Indeed. Rye moved through the store with purpose, selecting items and setting them on the counter. Work dresses, sturdy but respectable. Undergarments that made me blush. Boots, a warm coat, basic toiletries. Each item felt like another step away from the life I'd known. You put it on my account, Rye told Mr. Garrett, who was adding figures with shaking hands. Of course, Mr. Prescott, and shall I? That is, will Mr. Hale's account be? Mrs. Hale's employment expenses are Diamond P business, Rye said coolly. I trust that's clear. The old man bobbed his head so fast I feared it might fall off. As we loaded purchases into the wagon, I caught sight of myself in the mercantile window, pale, bruised, but chin high. I looked like a woman making a choice. The ride to the Diamond P took 2 hours through countryside that shifted from town outskirts to true rangeland. The road wound through valleys dotted with cottonwoods, their leaves just starting to turn gold. Rye handled the team with easy competence, pointing out landmarks as we went. That's Turner's Creek, marks our eastern boundary. Good water even in dry years. Over that ridge is where we summer the yearlings. His voice carried quiet pride. Not the biggest spread in the territory, but it's mine free and clear. How long have you been here? 8 years, came out from Missouri after the war. Started with 50 head and a lot of optimism. A brief smile. Built it up piece by piece. It's good land, honest land. I understood what he meant. Land that demanded work but gave back fair. Unlike the life I was leaving, where all the work in the world couldn't guarantee safety or kindness. The ranch house appeared as we crested a hill 2-story. Solid log construction with a wide porch and real glass windows. Smoke rose from the chimney, and I could see corrals, a barn, and a bunkhouse arranged in practical harmony. Mountains rose in the distance, early snow dusting their peaks. "It's beautiful," I said, meaning it. "It's home." He pulled the wagon up to the front steps. "Or it will be yours, for as long as you need it." A man emerged from the barn, tall, lean, with skin burned dark by years of sun. "Boss wasn't expecting you back, so—" He stopped short. Seeing me. "Malcolm, this is Mrs. Hale. She'll be taking over cooking duties. Mrs. Hale. Malcolm Wade, my foreman." Malcolm touched his hat brim, curiosity plain on his face. "Ma'am, welcome to the Diamond P." "Thank you." I climbed down from the wagon, trying to look like a woman who belonged here. "How many hands am I cooking for?" "6, plus Mr. Prescott and myself. 2 meals a day, dinner at noon and supper at 6. The boys are easy to please quantity over quality, though they won't complain if you manage both." "I'll manage." The certainty in my voice surprised me. Rye carried my packages inside while Malcolm returned to his work. The kitchen was large and well-equipped, a proper stove. Not just a hearth, plenty of workspace. And a pantry stocked with basics. Windows looked out over a kitchen garden gone to seed. "Your room's through here." Rye led me to a small but clean chamber off the kitchen. Bed with a quilted coverlet, washstand, small wardrobe. "Like I said, door locks from inside. You're safe here." Safe? The word felt foreign on my tongue. "Thank you. I'll start dinner." "Rest first. Get settled. The boys can wait an extra hour for their meal." He paused in the doorway. "One more thing. We're 15 miles from town here. Takes something powerful important to bring visitors this far. You understand? Victor would have to want me very badly to ride 15 miles. The distance felt like armor. After Rye left, I unpacked my few things, hanging the dresses in the wardrobe, arranging toiletries on the washstand. Such simple acts, but they felt momentous. I was claiming space in a world that wasn't Victor's. The kitchen drew me back. I explored cupboards, tested the stove's draft, inventoried supplies, beans soaking in a crock, salt pork in the cold room, flour and lard for biscuits. I could work with this. As I tied on an apron new store-bought, I caught my reflection in a pan's polished surface. The bruise was ugly, but my eyes looked different, clearer, like I was waking up from a long, bad dream. By the time Malcolm rang the dinner bell, I had beans bubbling with molasses and onions, fresh biscuits, and dried apple pie cooling on the sideboard. The hands filed in dusty, tired, young men who'd been working since dawn. They fell on the food like wolves, then remembered their manners. "This is fine, ma'am," one boy, he couldn't have been more than 19, said through a mouthful of biscuit. "Real fine." "Like my mama's cooking," another added, which sparked good-natured ribbing about his mama's burned cornbread. I found myself almost smiling as I refilled serving platters. This was work I understood, work that mattered, feeding people who labored hard and appreciated the effort. Rye ate with quiet appreciation, occasionally meeting my eyes with what might have been approval. When the meal ended and the hands tramped out with thanks and full bellies, he lingered. "That was the best meal this kitchen's seen in months," he said. "Maybe years." "It's just beans and biscuits." "It's someone caring enough to do it right." He stood, settling his hat. "I'll be working the north pasture if you need anything. Malcolm's always around the barn. You're not alone here." Not alone. As I cleared dishes and set beans to soak for tomorrow, I let those words settle into my bones, Outside the window, the sun painted the grassland gold and purple, somewhere out there. Victor was probably nursing his hangover and his rage, planning how to drag me back. But here, in this kitchen that smelled of apple pie and honest work, with a door that locked and mountains standing guard in the distance, I felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years. I felt like I could breathe. The afternoon passed in comfortable rhythm cleaning, planning tomorrow's meals, picking the last vegetables from the garden. As shadows lengthened, I heard horses approaching. My heart seized until I recognized Rye's easy stride across the porch. "Thought you should know," he said, hat in hand. "Victor came by the boarding house looking for you. Clara told him you'd left town, didn't say where." "He'll figure it out." "Maybe, but that's tomorrow's problem." He gestured at the garden. "Looks like you've been busy." "It seems a shame to let the last tomatoes go to waste." Sarah used to say the same thing. The mention of his sister came easier this time. "She'd have liked you. I think she appreciated women with backbone." As night fell and I served supper beef stew this time. With cornbread, I thought about backbone, about what it took to walk away, to say no, to choose uncertainty over familiar misery. The hands joked and told stories, treating me with rough courtesy. Malcolm shared news of a calf born that morning, twins expected from their best milk cow. Normal things, good things, the kind of life I'd imagined before Victor's charm turned to control. That night, in my small room with the door locked and mountains keeping watch, I lay awake listening to the ranch settle around me. Somewhere in town, Victor was planning. Sheriff Mercer was probably writing reports. The gossips were having a field day. But here, I was just the cook, the woman who made biscuits and tended the garden. It wasn't a permanent solution, I knew that. Victor wouldn't let me go so easily. The law still called me his wife. Yet as sleep finally claimed me, I felt that spark of hope from last night grow stronger. Maybe saying no had been the first step. Maybe this kitchen, this work, this distance was the second. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but tonight, I was Eliza, just Eliza. And that was enough. The telegram arrived on a Tuesday, 3 weeks after I'd settled into life at the Diamond P. Malcolm brought it from town, his face grim as he handed the yellow paper to Rye at the breakfast table. "Thought you should see this right away, boss." Rye read it, jaw tightening with each word. Without speaking, he passed it to me. The typewritten letters seemed to jump off the page. Notice of legal action. Stop Victor Hell Petitions Court for return of wife. Stop hearing scheduled November 15th. Stop attendance required in stop. My hands shook as I set the paper down. November 15th, 2 weeks away. The coffee I just poured turned bitter in my mouth. "He's moving fast," Malcolm observed. "Judge Thornton's back from Denver." "Thornton?" Rye's voice was flat. "He owes Victor money from that cattle deal last spring." The implications hung heavy in the kitchen. A judge indebted to my husband, a legal system that viewed wives as property. My newfound freedom suddenly felt fragile as frost. "I should leave," I said. "Head further west before—" "No." Rye's response came swift and firm. "Running makes you look guilty, like you abandoned your marriage without cause." "But the law—" "The law isn't always justice." He stood, decision crystallizing in his movements. "Malcolm, can you spare me for a few days? I need to ride to Denver." "Denver," I echoed. "There's a lawyer there, James Harrison. He handled my land disputes when I first bought the ranch. If anyone can find a legal path through this, it's him." Hope flickered, fragile but real. "You'd do that at the expense alone." "Consider it protecting my investment. I've got the best cook in the territory now. Can't afford to lose you to Victor Hale's wounded pride." Malcolm nodded approval. "I'll ready the horses. Best take the southern route, weather's turning on the mountain passes." Within an hour, Rye was mounted and ready. I handed him a packet of sandwiches and dried fruit for the road, trying not to think about how natural this felt, sending him off with provisions like a wife might. But I wasn't his wife. Couldn't be anyone's wife but Victor's, according to law. "Keep the doors locked," Rye instructed. "Malcolm and the boys will watch for trouble. If Victor comes, he won't find me alone." Malcolm finished. "Count on it, ma'am." I watched Rye disappear down the road, dust settling in his wake. The ranch felt different without him, not unsafe, but emptier somehow. I threw myself into work, baking enough bread to last days, preparing stews that could simmer unattended. Anything to keep my hands busy and my mind from circling like a trapped bird. That evening, as I served supper to the hands, young Tommy asked, "Is it true, ma'am, what they're saying in town about Mr. Hale?" "Tommy," Malcolm warned. "It's all right." I set down the coffee pot. Meeting their curious faces, these men had accepted me without question, treated me with respect. They deserved honesty. "Yes, my husband has filed legal papers. He wants me to return." "But you don't want to—" This from Ben, the oldest of the crew. "No, I don't." Silence stretched until Carl, who rarely spoke, said simply, "Then you shouldn't have to." The others nodded agreement, and something eased in my chest. These rough men, who knew nothing of marriage laws or women's legal status, understood something judges and lawyers seemed to miss, that a person should have the right to choose their own path. 2 days later, Sheriff Jonah Mercer rode up to the ranch. I watched from the kitchen window as he dismounted, moving like a man carrying unwelcome news. Malcolm met him at the porch, but Jonah's eyes found mine through the glass. "I need to speak with Mrs. Hale," I heard him say. "Official business." My hands stilled in the dishwater. Official business meant only one thing. I dried my hands slowly, smoothed my apron, and stepped onto the porch. "Sheriff," I kept my voice steady. He removed his hat, revealing more gray than I remembered. "Eliza, may we speak privately?" Malcolm bristled. "Anything you got to say can be said right here." "It's all right, Malcolm." I gestured to the porch chairs. "Please, Sheriff, sit." He settled uneasily, hat balanced on his knee. Up close, I could see the strain around his eyes, the weight of whatever he'd come to say. "Victor's been talking," he began, "making claims about impropriety. Says Prescott compromised you, lured you away." Heat flooded my cheeks. "That's a lie." "I know." The certainty in his voice surprised me. "Anyone with eyes can see Rye's treated you with nothing but respect. But Victor's spreading poison, and some folks are listening." "Let them talk," Malcolm growled. Jonah shook his head. "It's more than talk. Victor's building a case. Alienation of affection, abandonment. He's painting himself as the wronged husband, you as the wayward wife led astray, while conveniently forgetting to mention why I left." The bitterness in my voice could have curdled milk. "That's why I'm here." Jonah leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Eliza, I know we haven't spoken much over the years, but there are things, history, things that might help your case if you're willing to bring them to light." My breath caught. The way he said history weighted. Careful. "What kind of things?" He glanced at Malcolm, then back at me. "Private things, from before. Maybe we could—" Malcolm stays. I'd learned to trust the foreman's steady presence. "Whatever you have to say, he can hear." Jonah nodded slowly. "All right. Do you remember the summer of '75? The incident with the Garrett girl?" Ice formed in my stomach. Victor said that was lies. Said she was trying to trap him into marriage. "She was 15. Jonah's voice was hard now. 15 and terrified. Her family left town rather than face the scandal, but I took her statement before they went. I still have it." "You kept it, why?" Something shifted in his expression, pain, maybe, or regret. "Because I knew Victor Hale, knew what he was capable of. And because He stopped. Started again. Because I made a promise once. To someone who cared about your welfare. Someone who couldn't protect you themselves. The words hung between us, heavy with unspoken meaning. Malcolm cleared his throat. Sounds like evidence that could help Mrs. Hale's case. If she's willing to use it. Jonah met my eyes. It won't be easy. Bringing up old scandals, challenging a man like Victor in court, he'll fight dirty. He already is, I pointed out. This would be different. Personal, ugly. He stood, settling his hat. Think about it. Rye's lawyer Harrison, he's good. If anyone can use this information right, it's him. As he turned to go, I found my voice. Sheriff, this person who made you promise died 3 years ago. His smile was sad. But I think they'd be glad to know you found your courage. After he left, Malcolm and I sat in silence. The sun was setting, painting the mountains purple and gold. Finally, Malcolm spoke. You don't have to explain anything to me, ma'am. Your past is your business. But if there's something that could help... The Garrett girl, I said slowly. I remember hearing whispers. Victor courted her briefly. Then suddenly she was gone. Her family sold their store, left town in the night. Victor said she'd tried to trick him, but now you wonder. He was always so charming in public, so careful about his reputation. If the sheriff has evidence that he hurt that girl... I wrapped my arms around myself. Suddenly cold. It could change everything, or destroy me completely. Ma'am? Malcolm's voice was gentle but firm. You've got folks on your side now. Whatever comes, you won't face it alone. That night, I lay awake thinking about promises and secrets. Who had asked Jonah to watch over me? My parents were long dead. No siblings. Few friends brave enough to cross Victor. The mystery nagged at me. But stronger still was the possibility the sheriff had offered. Evidence. Proof that Victor's cruelty wasn't new. Wasn't my fault. Rye returned from Denver 4 days later. Trail dust thick on his clothes, but triumph lighting his eyes. I met him at the door with coffee and questions. Harrison will take the case, he said, gratefully accepting the cup. He thinks we have grounds to fight. Cruelty, abandonment of marital duties. The sheriff came by. I interrupted, then told him about Jonah's visit, the Garrett girl, the documented evidence. Rye's expression darkened with each word. When I finished, he set down his coffee with careful control. 15 years old. According to the sheriff. And Victor painted her as a scheming seductress. Disgust colored his words. Harrison needs to know about this immediately. He strode to his study, returning with paper and ink. As he wrote, I watched his hands strong, calloused from honest work, but gentle with the pen, so different from Victor's manicured fingers that left bruises. There's something else, Rye said, not looking up from his letter. Harrison says if Victor's claiming alienation of affection, we need to be very careful about appearances. No private conversations, no situations that could be misconstrued. We're already careful. We need to be more so. Now he did look up, and something in his eyes made my heart skip. I won't have your reputation destroyed because of kindness I've shown you. From now on, Malcolm or one of the hands should be present whenever we speak. The door to your room stays open during the day. Everything above reproach. The distance he was putting between us hurt more than I expected. These weeks at the ranch, I had grown comfortable with our easy conversation, our shared meals, the way he smiled when trying my apple pie. Now that would end. I understand, I managed. It's not what I want. The words came soft, unexpected. But it's what's best for you, for your case. We looked at each other across the kitchen table, the space between us suddenly vast. Then Malcolm's boots on the porch broke the moment, and Rye turned back to his letter. That night at supper, the new rules were silently implemented. Malcolm joined us at the table instead of eating with the hands. Conversation stayed general weather, cattle, ranch business, but I caught Rye watching me when he thought I wasn't looking. Something like longing in his eyes. Later, as I prepared for bed, I found myself at the window, looking out at the stars scattered across the endless sky. In 2 weeks, I'd stand before a judge and fight for my freedom. The thought terrified me, but worse was the thought of going back, of letting Victor win. A knock at my door made me turn. "Ma'am," Malcolm's voice. "Letter came for you with Mr. Prescott from Denver. He asked me to give it to you private-like." I opened the door, accepted the envelope. My name was written in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside, a single sheet of expensive paper. "Mrs. Hale, Mr. Prescott has apprised me of your situation. I believe we have a strong case, particularly with Sheriff Mercer's evidence. I will arrive in Red Mesa on November the 13th to prepare for the hearing. Remember, you are not property to be reclaimed, but a person deserving of justice. We will make the court see this. Yours in service, James Harrison, ESQ." I read it twice, then held the letter to my chest. A lawyer who saw me as a person, not property. It seemed a small thing, but in that moment, it meant everything. Outside, wind swept down from the mountains, rattling the windows. Winter was coming. With it, the fight of my life. But I wasn't the same woman who'd fled Victor's house that October night. I'd found work, purpose, friends. I'd remembered who I was beneath the fear. Whatever came next, I wouldn't face it alone. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. The first witnesses came forward on a cold November morning, their breath misting in the air as they climbed the ranch house steps. Mrs. Pemberton from the saloon arrived first, clutching her shawl tight against more than just the wind. "I saw what he did," she said simply, settling into Clara's parlor where we'd gathered to prepare testimony. That night and others, man who strikes his wife in public does worse in private. Mr. Harrison, true to his word, had arrived 2 days prior, a thin, sharp-eyed man who listened more than he spoke. He took notes in shorthand as Mrs. Pemberton recounted the evening at the Silver Dollar, the sound of Victor's hand against my cheek, the silence that followed. "Would you testify to this in court?" Harrison asked. She hesitated, fingers worrying her shawl's fringe. "Victor Hale holds the note on my sister's farm." "I see." Harrison made another note. "And if that note were to be purchased by another party?" Rye stepped forward from where he'd been standing by the fireplace. "Name your price." And so it went. Throughout the day, people trickled in, some brave, some frightened, all with stories. The blacksmith who'd seen bruises when I'd brought Victor's horse in for shoeing. The doctor's wife who'd noticed how I flinched when touched. Each testimony another stone in the wall we were building against Victor's lies. But as evening fell, Harrison pulled Rye and me aside. "It's not enough. These witnesses help, but domestic disputes. Judges tend to side with husbands unless there's overwhelming evidence." "What about the Garrett girl?" I asked. "Sheriff Mercer brought the documentation this morning." Harrison tapped his folder. "It's damning, but it's also old news. Victor was never charged. Without Miss Garrett herself..." "She's in California," Sheriff Mercer interrupted from the doorway. He entered, removing his hat. "Married now. New name. But I have her address. Sent a telegram this morning." Hope flared in my chest. She'd come back testify. "Unknown, but there's something else." Jonah's expression was grave. "Victor's hired guns. The Morrison brothers. They've been asking about the ranch's routines, when riders are out checking fence lines." Malcolm cursed under his breath. The Morrison brothers' reputation preceded them, not killers exactly, but men who solved problems for those who paid well. "Double the watch," Rye ordered. "No one rides alone." "Already done," Malcolm confirmed. "But boss, if they're planning something..." Then we'll be ready. Steel threaded Rye's voice. Harrison, how long before the hearing? 3 days. 3 days. The words echoed in the sudden silence. 3 days to gather evidence, protect witnesses, and prepare for a fight that would determine the rest of my life. That night, despite our careful adherence to propriety, Rye and I found ourselves alone in the kitchen. I was banking the stove's fires when he appeared in the doorway. You should be sleeping, he said softly. So should you. He entered, maintaining careful distance. Are you afraid? Terrified, I admitted. But not of Victor anymore. Of losing, of being dragged back, of... I stopped, unable to voice the rest. Of what? Of losing this. I gestured around the kitchen, but meant so much more. This life, this freedom, these people who see me as more than Victor's property. Eliza, my name on his lips was almost a caress. Whatever happens in that courtroom, you've already won something. You found your courage. No judge can take that away. We stood there, the kitchen table between us like a chasm. So much unspoken, so much forbidden by circumstance and propriety. Then footsteps on the porch shattered the moment Malcolm, making his rounds. Mr. Prescott, he called through the door. Riders coming. Looks like the Morrison boys. Rye's hand went to his gun. How many? Just the 2, but they're bold as brass, riding right up to the house. Wake the others, quietly. Rye looked at me. Lock yourself in your room. No, the word surprised us both. This is my fight too. He started to argue, then stopped. Something in my expression. Perhaps the woman who'd cowered from Victor was gone. The Morrison brothers dismounted in our yard like they owned it. Jake, the elder, touched his hat in mock courtesy when Rye stepped onto the porch. Evening, Prescott. Nice spread you got here. State your business or move along. Now, is that any way to greet visitors? Tom Morrison grinned, teeth gleaming in the lamplight. We're here peaceful-like. Got a message from Mr. Hale. I'm not interested in Victor Hale's messages. Might want to hear this one. Jake's hand rested casual on his pistol. He's willing to make a deal. The woman comes home quiet-like, no fuss at the hearing, and everybody goes back to normal. She don't... He shrugged. Well, accidents happen on ranches. Fires start. Cattle scatter. Good men get hurt. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Through the window, I could see our hands emerging from the bunkhouse, rifles in hand. The Morrisons saw them too, but didn't seem concerned. That's his message. Rye's voice was dangerously calm. That's it. Here's mine. Rye stepped down from the porch, closing the distance. Tell Victor Hale that if one spark lands on my property, if one cow goes missing, if anyone under my protection is harmed, I'll take it personal. And unlike him, I don't hire my killing done. Jake's eyes narrowed. Big talk. Try me. They stared at each other, tension crackling between them. Then Jake laughed, stepping back. Message delivered. We'll be seeing you, Prescott. They mounted and rode off, taking their time, showing no fear of the armed men watching. As their hoofbeats faded, I emerged from the house. They'll be back, Malcolm said grimly. Let them come. Rye turned to address the gathered hands. From now on, we post guards. 2 men, 4-hour shifts. Anyone sees anything suspicious, raise the alarm. The men nodded, faces set with determination. As they dispersed to organize the watch, I touched Rye's arm. I'm sorry, this is all because of me. No. He covered my hand with his briefly, then stepped away. This is because Victor Hale thinks he can own people. We're just showing him different. The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparation and vigilance. Harrison interviewed witnesses, organized documents, prepared arguments, The ranch operated under siege mentality. Guards posted, weapons loaded, everyone watchful. Then, the morning before the hearing, a miracle arrived by telegraph. "Will testify, stop arriving tomorrow. Stop justice, delayed too long. Stop signed, Mrs. Sarah Caulfield, Nee Garrett. Stop." I read it 3 times, tears blurring my vision. The Garrett girl, now a married woman, was coming. After all these years, she was willing to face Victor, to speak her truth. "This changes everything," Harrison said, excitement breaking through his professional composure. "A credible witness to prior abuse, willing to testify. Judge Thornton won't be able to ignore this." But that night, our hope was tested. I woke to the smell of smoke and shouts of fire. The barn was ablaze, flames licking at the sky. Men ran with buckets, forming lines from the water trough. I grabbed a bucket, joining the fight. The horses screamed in terror, and I saw Rye and Malcolm rushing to free them. "The cattle," someone shouted. "They're driving them toward the canyon." It was chaos fire, stampeding animals, men running in all directions. The Morrison brothers' warning made real. But our people fought back, containing the fire, turning the cattle. By dawn, we'd saved the barn structure, though lost hay and tack. More importantly, no one was seriously hurt. As the sun rose over our smoke-stained faces, Sheriff Mercer arrived with a deputy. "Saw the smoke from town," he said, surveying the damage. "The Morrisons." "Never saw them," Malcolm admitted. "But who else?" Jonah's jaw tightened. "Without proof." "We know who ordered this," I said, exhaustion making me bold. "The timing isn't coincidence. Knowledge isn't evidence." But Jonah's expression said he agreed. "You folks need help cleaning up the hearings this afternoon." "We'll manage," Rye said. "We'll be there." As the sheriff left, I looked at our soot-covered group, my chosen family, who'd risked themselves for me. "If you say sorry one more time," Ben interrupted, "I'll throw you in the water trough myself." Despite everything, laughter rippled through the group. We'd survived Victor's warning. Now came the real fight. Harrison arrived as we cleaned up, his face grim. "I heard about the fire. Are you still willing to proceed Victor's showing what he's capable of?" "All the more reason to stop him legally," I said, surprising myself with my firmness. "If we back down now, he wins." "Brave woman." Harrison smiled. "Very well. I've arranged for Mrs. Caulfield to meet us at the courthouse. Sheriff Mercer will provide protection. Are you ready?" Ready, I was exhausted, frightened, covered in soot and ash. But beneath it all, a core of steel I'd forgotten I possessed. "Yes," I said, "I'm ready." The ride to town felt both endless and too short. Rye led our procession, me, Harrison, Malcolm, and 4 armed ranch hands. No one spoke, tension thick as morning fog. As we crested the hill overlooking Red Mesa, I saw the courthouse square already filling with people. Word had spread. The whole town would witness this. "Quite the audience," Harrison observed. "Victor likes a show," I replied. "Let's give him one he won't forget." But as we descended into town, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were riding into another kind of fire, one that would burn away everything familiar, leaving only truth in its wake. The question was, would I survive the flames? Malcolm helped me down from the wagon in front of the courthouse. My legs trembled, but I stood straight. Across the square, I saw Victor emerge from the hotel, impeccably dressed, supremely confident. Our eyes met across the distance. He smiled and touched his hat. I lifted my chin and walked through the courthouse doors. The battle was about to begin. The morning after the fire, we rode out to check the damage to the north pasture fence. The autumn sun climbed slowly, painting the grassland gold despite the acrid smell of smoke still clinging to our clothes. Rye had insisted I stay at the house, but I needed air, needed space to think before tomorrow's hearing. "You should be resting," he said for the 3rd time, guiding his horse alongside mine. I can't sit still. Not today. I adjusted my borrowed hat, one of Clara's that had somehow made its way to the ranch. Besides, Willow needed exercise. The mare beneath me nickered softly as if in agreement. Over the past weeks, she'd become my sanctuary. Our morning rides, the one time I felt truly free. Rye had assigned her to me the second week, saying she needed someone with gentle hands. We'd understood each other immediately. The fence can wait, Rye said, but without real conviction. We both knew the work never waited, and keeping busy held the fear at bay. We crested the ridge as the sun broke fully free of the horizon, spreading light across the endless plain below. The wind picked up, setting the dry grass to dancing, and for a moment the world felt impossibly vast and beautiful despite everything. Look, Rye pointed to where a golden eagle circled lazily above the canyon. Haven't seen one of those since spring. We reined in our horses, watching the magnificent bird ride the thermals. The moment stretched peaceful between us, a respite from the storm we both knew was coming. Sarah loved watching eagles, he said quietly. Said they were proof that freedom was possible, even in hard country. Your sister sounds wise. She was wiser than me, certainly. He shifted in his saddle, leather creaking. She'd have liked you, would have admired what you're doing. Running away. Standing up, there's a difference. The eagle swooped lower, its shadow racing across the yellowed grass. I thought about freedom, about cages seen and unseen, about the courage it took to spread wings that had been clipped. I need to tell you something, I said, the words coming unbidden, about why I married Victor. Rye turned toward me but said nothing, giving me space to continue. My father died when I was 19. Pneumonia. Mother followed 6 months later, grief, the doctor said, but I think it was more like she just decided not to fight anymore. I stroked Willow's neck, finding comfort in her warmth. I had plans, was going to teach school, maybe save enough to attend the normal school in Denver. But the debts. Father had borrowed to buy seed that spring, and the crop failed. The bank wanted payment. Victor held the note, Rye guessed. I nodded. He was so charming at first, called on me properly, brought flowers, spoke of building a life together, said he'd forgive the debt as a wedding gift. I thought, my voice caught, I thought I was lucky. You were young, alone. He knew exactly what he was doing. The worst part is, I convinced myself it was love. Even after I stopped, unable to voice memories that still visited my nightmares. I kept thinking if I was a better wife, if I tried harder, things would go back to how they were during our courtship. Eliza. The way he said my name made me look up. His eyes held no pity, only understanding. Men like Victor don't change. They just get better at hiding what they are until they have what they want. We sat in silence, watching the eagle circle higher until it was just a speck against the endless blue. The wind whispered through the grass, carrying the scent of sage and coming winter. We should head back, I said finally. Mister, Harrison will be arriving soon. But Rye didn't move. Wait, there's something before tomorrow, before everything changes. I need you to know. He stopped, jaw working as if physically fighting the words. What? He swung down from his horse in one fluid motion, then helped me dismount. We stood facing each other on that windswept ridge, the morning sun warming our backs, the vast plain stretching before us like possibility itself. I know the timing is impossible, he said. Know that anything between us could destroy your case, make Victor's lies seem like truth, but I can't let you face tomorrow without telling you that these weeks, watching you find your strength again, seeing you with the hands, the way you've made that kitchen into the heart of this ranch. He paused, searching for words. You've brought something back to life here. In me. My heart hammered against my ribs. Rye? I'm not asking for anything. Not now. Maybe not ever if that's your choice. But you deserve to know that someone sees you for who you really are. Not as property to be fought over, but as a woman with her own mind, her own dreams, her own fierce spirit. He lifted his hand slowly, giving me time to step back if I chose. When I didn't, his fingers barely grazed my cheek the lightest touch, like a promise made without words. The contact sent warmth spreading through me like wildfire across dry plains. It was the first time since leaving Victor that a man had touched me with gentleness, with reverence. Such a simple gesture, just fingertips against skin, but it felt like awakening, like that eagle finding the thermal that would carry it higher. "Your cheek," he murmured. "The bruise is gone." "The outside ones heal," I whispered. "The inside ones too, given time, given space to breathe." We stood frozen in that moment, his hand barely touching my face, both of us aware we were balanced on a precipice as surely as if we stood at the canyon's edge. One step forward would change everything. One step back would preserve the careful boundaries that protected my legal standing. It was I who moved not back, not forward, but lifting my own hand to cover his, pressing his palm fully against my cheek. Such a small rebellion against all the rules that bound us. But it felt momentous. "After tomorrow," I said, "after the hearing, when this is settled one way or another." "I'll be here," he finished. "Whatever happens, however long it takes, I'll be here." A hawk's cry pierced the morning, sharp and wild. We stepped apart, the moment broken but not lost. Something had shifted between us, fundamental as the seasons changing. "We should go," I said, though every part of me wanted to stay on this ridge, suspended in this pocket of time where Victor's claims and society's rules couldn't reach. Rye helped me mount Willow again, his hands lingering a moment at my waist. As we turned our horses back toward the ranch, I felt that touch like a brand not of ownership, but of promise. Whatever tomorrow brought in that courtroom, I would carry this morning with me. This proof that tenderness existed, that there were men who touched with blessing rather than bruising. The ride back was quiet, both of us lost in thought. As the ranch buildings came into view, I saw Harrison's buggy already waiting. Reality crashed back, depositions to review, testimony to prepare, a battle to plan. But as I dismounted and headed for the house, Rye caught my hand briefly. "That eagle," he said. "Sarah was right. Freedom is possible, even in hard country, especially in hard country. That's where it means the most." I squeezed his fingers once before letting go. Tomorrow I would fight for my freedom in a court of law, surrounded by men who saw me as property to be allocated. But this morning, on a windswept ridge with an eagle overhead and Rye's touch still warm on my skin, I had already tasted what freedom felt like. It tasted like hope, like possibility, like the first breath after a lifetime of suffocation. As I entered the kitchen where Harrison waited with his papers and plans, I touched my cheek where Rye's fingers had been. Such a small caress, barely more than a whisper of contact. But sometimes the gentlest touch carries the most power, like a single spark that sets the whole plain ablaze, spreading light and warmth where only cold darkness had been before. Tomorrow would bring its own fires, but today, in this moment, I was already burning with something Victor had tried to extinguish. Not desire, not yet, but something more precious and more dangerous. The absolute certainty that I deserved to be touched with kindness, that I was worth fighting for. That freedom, once tasted, could never be willingly surrendered again. Harrison looked up as I entered, took in my wind-burned cheeks and the new steadiness in my spine, and smiled. "You look ready," he said simply. I thought of eagles and gentle hands and promises made without words. "Yes," I said, meaning it down to my bones. "I'm ready." Through the window, I watched Rye lead the horses to the barn, his movements sure and careful. Tomorrow we would be plaintiff and witness, maintaining proper distance in a courtroom full of judging eyes. But today we had shared something precious and private, something that belonged only to us and the watching sky. It was enough. More than enough. It was everything. The Red Mesa courthouse smelled of old wood and fresh tobacco, packed with more souls than it was meant to hold. I sat beside Mr. Harrison at the plaintiff's table, my hands folded tight to hide their trembling. Across the aisle, Victor lounged in his chair like a man attending a social call, occasionally whispering to his lawyer and smiling at acquaintances in the gallery. Judge Thornton entered precisely at 10, his black robes making him look like a carrion bird settling onto its perch. I knew him by reputation, fair but traditional. A man who believed in the letter of the law? The debt he owed Victor hung unspoken between us all. The matter of Hale versus Hale, the bailiff announced. Petition for the return of an estranged wife. Even the language reduced me to property, something to be returned, like a borrowed tool or strayed livestock. I straightened my spine, feeling the weight of eyes from the packed gallery. Rye sat in the front row with Malcolm, their presence a steady anchor. Victor's lawyer, Mr. Cromwell, rose first. Your Honor, this matter is quite simple. Mrs. Hale abandoned her lawful husband without cause, taking up residence with another man, bringing scandal upon a respected member of our community. We ask that you order her immediate return to her rightful home. Without cause, Harrison shot to his feet. Your Honor, we intend to show extensive cause. You'll have your turn, Counselor, Judge Thornton said mildly. Mr. Cromwell, proceed with your evidence. What followed was a masterwork of twisted truth. Cromwell painted Victor as a devoted husband, generous provider, pillar of the community. He produced witnesses, merchants who spoke of Victor's business dealings, neighbors who'd seen only the public face of our marriage. Mrs. Hale wanted for nothing, testified Mrs. Weatherby, who lived 2 houses down. Beautiful home, finest clothes, a husband who doted on her. Why, just last Christmas, he gave her pearl earbobs that must have cost a fortune. Harrison made notes but didn't cross-examine. We'd expected this, the parade of those who saw only what Victor wanted them to see. Then Cromwell called his key witness. Mr. Hale, please take the stand. Victor rose with practiced dignity. Every inch the wronged husband. He placed his hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth with such sincerity that I felt bile rise in my throat. Mr. Hale, Cromwell began, tell us about your marriage. Elizabeth and I were happy, Victor said, managing to sound both strong and wounded. I gave her everything a woman could want. Yes, we had disagreements, what couple doesn't? But I never imagined she would humiliate me this way, running off to live with another man. Objection, Harrison called. Mrs. Hale is employed at the Diamond P Ranch, not living with anyone. Sustained. The jury will disregard implications of impropriety without evidence. But the damage was done. I saw it in the faces of the crowd, the whispers, the knowing looks, a woman living on a ranch with unmarried men, the scandal of it. Victor continued his performance, voice breaking at just the right moments as he spoke of his devastation, his continued love for his wayward wife. By the time Cromwell finished, Victor had painted himself as a saint and me as an ungrateful, possibly a duellerous woman. Your witness, Mr. Harrison, Judge Thornton said. Harrison approached slowly, letting silence build. Mr. Hale, you say you gave your wife everything. Did that include the bruises? Objection, Cromwell shot up. Inflammatory and without foundation. I'll lay foundation, Your Honor. Harrison turned back to Victor. Did you strike your wife in the Silver Dollar Saloon on October 15th? Victor's mask slipped for just a moment. She was hysterical. I may have corrected her, as is a husband's right when his wife forgets herself in public. Corrected her. Harrison's voice could have etched glass. Is that what you call it? And the other times? What other times? These are baseless accusations. Mrs. Pemberton, Harrison called. Please take the stand. The saloon woman walked forward. chin high despite the whispers. She testified to what she'd seen that night, and other nights, the casual cruelty, the public humiliations. Then came Dr. Sawyer's wife, speaking of bruises she'd noticed, the blacksmith's apprentice, describing marks on my arms when I'd brought in Victor's horse, each testimony another stone in the wall we were building. But I saw Judge Thornton's expression troubled but unconvinced. These were matters between husband and wife. His face seemed to say, unfortunate, but not necessarily illegal. Then Harrison played his trump card. I call Mrs. Sarah Caulfield to the stand. The doors opened, and a woman entered, pretty, composed, wearing traveling clothes. I recognized her, though years had passed. The Garrett girl, grown into a woman who'd found her courage. Victor went white as parchment. Sarah took the oath and sat straight-backed in the witness chair, meeting Victor's stare without flinching. Mrs. Caulfield, Harrison began gently. Do you know the plaintiff, Victor Hale? I do. He courted me in 1875 when I was 15 years old. And what was the nature of that courtship? Sarah's voice stayed steady as she unfolded her story. The charming older man who'd turned her head, the promises of marriage, the increasing liberties he took, always pushing boundaries, using her youth and inexperience against her. When I finally refused his advances and threatened to tell my father, he struck me, said no one would believe a silly girl over a respected businessman, said he'd ruin my family's store if I spoke against him. The courtroom had gone silent as a tomb. What did you do? Harrison asked. My family left town, started over in California. I kept silent for years, ashamed, believing it was my fault. But when Sheriff Mercer telegrammed about Mrs. Hale, she looked at me directly for the first time. I couldn't let another woman suffer for my silence. Objection. Cromwell was on his feet. This alleged incident has no bearing on... It establishes a pattern of behavior. Harrison interrupted. Shows that Mr. Hale has a history of using violence to control women who displease him. I'll allow it, Judge Thornton ruled, though he looked uncomfortable. Victor's carefully constructed image was cracking. I saw it in the shifted attitudes of the gallery, the way some of his supporters now avoided his eyes. But he wasn't finished. That night, as we prepared for the next day's continuation, word came that the Morrison brothers were back. They'd been seen on the road to the ranch. They're planning something, Malcolm said grimly. We'd gathered in the hotel room Harrison had secured for me. Guards posted outside. Question is what? We found out at dawn. I woke to shouting and the sound of breaking glass. From my window, I could see flames licking at the courthouse roof. Fire in the courthouse? We rushed outside to join the bucket brigade. The whole town turned out, passing water hand over hand. But the fire had been carefully set not to destroy the building, but to damage the courtroom, to delay proceedings. The records, Harrison said, horror in his voice. The evidence. Sheriff Mercer appeared, soot-streaked but triumphant. Already moved to the bank vault. Had a feeling something might happen. Victor stood across the square, watching the flames with an expression of carefully crafted concern. But I caught the satisfaction in his eyes before he masked it. This changes nothing, I said loudly enough for him to hear. We'll continue the hearing wherever we must, in the street if necessary. Judge Thornton, still in his nightshirt with a coat thrown over, made his way through the crowd. Court will reconvene in the Methodist Church at noon. This proceeding will not be delayed by vandalism. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of salvage and preparation. The church filled even fuller than the courthouse had been. People drawn by drama and disaster in equal measure. When proceedings resumed, Harrison called me to testify. I dreaded this moment, but as I placed my hand on the Bible, I felt the strangest calm descend. I told my story simply, without embellishment, the courtship that became control, the charm that became cruelty, the bruises hidden beneath long sleeves, the tears shed in silence. The slow death of hope until that night in the saloon when Rye's intervention had shown me another way was possible. He made me believe I deserved it, I said, meeting the eyes of the women in the gallery. That I was fortunate to have a husband at all. That his anger was my fault for not being good enough. But I wasn't property to be corrected. I was a person who deserved kindness. You took vows, Cromwell said in cross-examination. For better or worse. Did those words mean nothing to you? They meant everything. That's why I stayed as long as I did, but marriage vows go both ways, Mr. Cromwell, to love and to cherish. Tell me, where was the cherishing in a closed fist? Victor couldn't contain himself. Lies. She's painting me as a monster to justify her adultery. Mr. Hale, Judge Thornton's gavel cracked. You will remain silent or be removed. Let him speak, I said suddenly. Let everyone see the man behind the mask. Victor's face contorted. You were nothing when I found you drowning in debt. No prospects, no... Mr. Hale, control yourself. But Victor was beyond control now. The careful image shattered. She belongs to me. The law says so. A wife's place is... The church doors burst open. Tom Morrison stumbled in, clothes singed, supported by two townsmen. Tried to burn the Diamond P, someone shouted. Cowboys caught him setting fires in the barn. His brother got away. Sheriff Mercer moved swiftly, iron shackles appearing from beneath his coat. Tom Morrison, you're under arrest for arson. He paid us, Morrison babbled, pointing at Victor. $50 to burn them out, make them too scared to testify. The courtroom erupted. Judge Thornton's gavel pounded repeatedly as Victor shouted denials. Cromwell tried to maintain order, and the gallery buzzed like a disturbed hive. When quiet finally descended, Judge Thornton looked older, wearier. I've heard enough, Mr. Hale. While the criminal charges will be addressed separately, this court finds sufficient evidence of cruelty and abandonment of marital duties to grant Mrs. Hale a decree of separate maintenance. She is not required to return to your household. No! Victor lunged forward, only to be restrained by Sheriff Mercer and his deputy. You can't do this. She's my wife, my property. She is a person, Judge Thornton said firmly. Deserving of the law's protection. Mrs. Hale, you are free to live where you choose. Mr. Hale, you will provide $30 monthly for her maintenance and will make no attempt to contact or coerce her. Violation of this order will result in immediate arrest. I sagged in my chair, hardly believing. Not a full divorce that was still nearly impossible, but legal separation. Freedom to live my own life. Safety backed by law. As Victor was led away, still raging, our eyes met one final time. The handsome mask was completely gone now, revealing the cruel child who'd never learned he couldn't have everything he wanted. This isn't over, he snarled. Yes, I said quietly. It is. The church emptied slowly, people pressing forward to shake my hand or offer quiet support. Women who'd never spoken to me before whispered their own stories, their eyes holding new recognition. Outside, Rye waited by the wagon with Malcolm. The November sky stretched endless and blue above us, full of possibility. Ready to go home? Rye asked simply. Home, the Diamond P, the kitchen that smelled of bread and honest work, the people who'd stood by me, the life I'd chosen for myself. Yes, I said, accepting his hand up into the wagon. Let's go home. As we rolled out of town, I didn't look back. Behind us lay ashes and broken chains. Ahead waited whatever future I had the courage to build. For the first time in years, that future was mine to shape. The first snow came 3 days after the trial, dusting the ranch in pristine white like a clean page waiting to be written. I stood at the kitchen window, kneading bread and watching the hands work to reinforce the barn that Tom Morrison's fire had damaged. The rhythm of rebuilding felt like healing slow, steady, necessary. Letter for you, ma'am. Young Tommy appeared at the door. shaking snow from his hat. "Sheriff brought it out personal-like." My hands stilled in the dough. Letters meant legal documents, meant Victor hadn't given up. But when I opened it, I found Jonah Mercer's careful script. "Mrs. Hale thought you should know. Victor posted bail but violated the terms by trying to hire more men for mischief. Judge Thornton revoked bail and added 6 months to his sentence. Also enclosed is something I should have given you years ago. J. Mercer." A second paper fell out, older, sealed with wax I recognized. My mother's seal. My hands trembled as I opened it. "My dear Eliza, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and you are in trouble. I asked Jonah to hold this until you needed it most. There is an account at the Denver Mercantile Bank in your name alone, money I saved from eggs and sewing. Hidden from your father's debts. It isn't much, but it might buy you freedom someday. Remember, you are stronger than you know. Your loving mother." I sank into a chair. The letter clutched to my chest, even from beyond the grave. My mother had tried to protect me. Tears came then not of sorrow, but of release, of gratitude, of understanding that I'd never been as alone as I'd believed. Bad News Rye appeared in the doorway, concern creasing his features. I showed him both letters. He read in silence, then looked at me with something like wonder. "Your mother was a wise woman." "Wiser than I knew." I wiped my eyes. "This money, I could repay what I owe you. Start fresh somewhere." "Is that what you want to leave?" The question hung between us. These past days since the trial, we'd maintained careful propriety, aware that despite the legal separation, I was still a married woman in the eyes of society. But the connection forged on that windswept ridge remained, unspoken but undeniable. "I don't know what I want," I admitted. "For so long, all I wanted was to be free. Now that I am," I gestured helplessly, "I feel like a bird that's forgotten how to fly." "Then stay until you remember." He moved to the stove, pouring coffee with studied casualness. "The ranch needs you. The hands would revolt if they had to go back to Malcolm's cooking." "Just the hands?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. He set down the pot, turning to face me fully. "Eliza, you know it's not just the hands." We stood there, the kitchen warm around us, snow falling soft outside. Everything we couldn't say filling the space between us. Malcolm's boots on the porch broke the spell. "Boss, we got company coming. Looks like Clara Patterson and some other ladies from town." I smoothed my apron, puzzled. Clara visited occasionally, but she'd never brought others. Through the window, I counted 3 wagons approaching through the snow. They arrived in a flutter of wool shawls and determined faces, Clara. Mrs. Pemberton from the saloon, Dr. Sawyer's wife, the minister's daughter, even prim Mrs. Weatherby, who testified for Victor. 9 women in all, filing into my kitchen with purpose. "Ladies," I managed, "what brings you out in this weather?" Clara took charge. As always, "We've come to discuss the future. Eliza, yours and ours." They arranged themselves around the kitchen table, and I hurried to provide coffee and the apple cake I'd baked that morning. Rye excused himself, but I caught his encouraging nod as he left. The trial opened eyes. Mrs. Pemberton began. "Made some of us look at our own situations different." Mary's got a point. "Dr. Sawyer's wife added, "How many of us have kept silent about things we shouldn't? How many bruises have we hidden? How many tears cried where no one could see?" Mrs. Weatherby shifted uncomfortably. "I owe you an apology, Mrs. Hale. I testified for your husband because I was afraid not to. He holds the mortgage on our home. Many of us are beholden somehow." Clara said, "To husbands, fathers, creditors. But watching you stand up, speak your truth, it's given us ideas." "What kind of ideas?" I asked, though something in my chest was already lifting, expanding. "A society. The minister's daughter burst out. For women's aid and protection, somewhere wives could go for help. Widows might find work. Girls could learn skills beyond just marriage. We could teach, another woman added. Reading, writing, arithmetic, but also bookkeeping, telegraphy, skills that could earn wages and provide refuge. Mrs. Pemberton said quietly, for those who need it, like Clara's boarding house but more organized, with legal backing if possible. They all looked at me expectantly. I set down my coffee cup, mind racing. You want me to, what, lead this? You've already shown the way. Clara said simply, but more than that, you understand what it's like to need help and have nowhere to turn. That makes you the right person to ensure others don't face the same. I thought of my mother's letter, of the account waiting in Denver, of the skills I'd learned here at the ranch managing a household, stretching resources, creating abundance from simple ingredients, of the teaching certificate I'd once dreamed of earning. It would take money, I said slowly. A building, supplies, legal fees. The church has offered their old parsonage. The minister's daughter said, it needs work, but it's sound. And we've already collected pledges, Clara added, producing a paper covered in signatures. Small amounts mostly, but it adds up. I read through the names, some expected, many surprising. Women who'd nodded politely to Victor on the street while guessing what happened behind closed doors. Women who'd kept their own silences, their own secrets. What about the law? I asked. Women's property rights are changing, Mrs. Sawyer interrupted. Slowly, but changing. Colorado gave women the vote in '93. Wyoming's had it longer. Things are possible here that wouldn't be back east. And Mr. Harrison has offered to advise us, Clara added. Pro bono, he said, considering it an investment in justice. They talked for 2 hours, plans tumbling over each other, classes in practical skills, a lending library, legal advocacy, temporary shelter. By the time they left, I had a notebook full of ideas and a heart full of something I'd almost forgotten existed, purpose beyond mere survival. That evening, as I served supper to the hands, the excitement must have shown. Ben asked if I'd gotten good news. The best kind. I told him, the kind you make yourself. After the meal, Rye lingered as had become his habit. The lady's visit went well. I told him everything, words tumbling out like water breaking through a dam. He listened with that complete attention I'd come to treasure, asking questions that helped clarify my own thinking. It's ambitious, he said when I finally ran out of words. It'll take work, patience. You'll face opposition. I know. I met his eyes. But someone has to try. And I have advantages, my mother's money to contribute, the backing of respectable women, a legal precedent from the trial, and a safe place to return to when you need it. He paused. This ranch will always be your home. Eliza, whether you're here every night or just visiting between changing the world. Rye. There was so much I wanted to say. So much still impossible while I wore another man's name. I know, he said softly. The law says what it says. But the law's not the only truth that matters. Over the following weeks, the Women's Aid Society took shape with surprising speed. The old parsonage was cleaned, painted, furnished with donations. We held our first meeting on a snowy Tuesday. 7 women attending besides the organizers. 2 were widows struggling to feed their children. 1 was a young girl whose father drank away his wages. Another bore the too familiar shadows of hidden bruises. I taught basic letters and numbers, skills that could open doors to employment. Mrs. Pemberton demonstrated bookkeeping. The minister's daughter offered Bible study for those who wanted it. But we made it clear faith wasn't required for aid. Victor tried to interfere from his cell, sending threatening letters through his lawyer. But Judge Thornton, perhaps feeling guilty for his earlier blindness, issued an injunction preventing any harassment of the society or its members. He's got bigger problems anyway. Sheriff Mercer told me one afternoon. The Garrett, excuse me, Caulfield situation opened up other questions. 2 more women have come forward. He'll be lucky if he only serves 2 years. Winter deepened, and with it came both challenges and victories. A young woman appeared at our door one night, her situation desperate, her husband influential. We sheltered her, found her work at the hotel, helped her file for separation. When her husband came looking, he found not a defenseless woman but a united front of respectable ladies who wouldn't be intimidated. Through it all, I split my time between town and ranch. 3 days a week at the society, 4 at the Diamond P. It was exhausting but exhilarating, like using muscles too long dormant. One evening in late February, I returned to the ranch to find Rye waiting on the porch despite the cold. Something wrong? I asked, suddenly fearful. No, nothing wrong. He stood, and I saw he held an envelope. This came while you were gone. From Denver. I recognized Harrison's writing and tore it open, scanning quickly. Then I had to sit down, legs suddenly weak. Eliza Rye knelt beside my chair. What is it? Victor, I whispered. He's dead. Killed in a prison fight. Someone he cheated in a business deal. They think... I waited for the feelings to come relief. Sorrow. Something. Instead, there was only a strange emptiness, like looking at a house where you used to live and finding it smaller than memory. I'm a widow, I said, testing the words. I'm free. Rye's hand covered mine. You were already free. You made yourself free. This just makes it official. He was right. Victor had lost his hold on me the night I said no in that saloon. Everything since had been just paperwork catching up to truth. The society will be glad, I said. Practical considerations filling the silence. A widow can own property, enter contracts. We can expand. Maybe open branches in other towns. Eliza, Rye's voice stopped my rushing words. The society's not the only thing that might change now. I met his eyes, saw everything we'd both been so careful not to say these long months. No, I agreed. Not the only thing. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. The cage was open, but I needed time to trust my wings. Rye seemed to understand, rising and stepping back with that patient grace I'd come to love. Love. Yes, I could admit it now. Here in the safety of my own mind, I loved this man who'd shown me kindness without conditions, who'd given me shelter without chains, who waited now for me to choose my own time and terms. I need to observe mourning. I said, for propriety's sake, if nothing else. 6 months at least. I've waited this long, he replied. 6 months more won't kill me. Might near about, but won't. Despite everything, I laughed. It felt strange, but good, like spring water after drought. That night, I lay in my narrow bed listening to the ranch settle into sleep. So much had changed. The frightened woman who'd crept into Clara's boarding house was gone, replaced by someone I was still getting to know. Someone who taught classes and faced down influential men and made plans that stretched beyond mere survival. The future spread before me, bright with possibility. The society would grow. Women would find refuge and skills and hope, and maybe, when mourning ended and my heart finished healing, other dreams might bloom as well. But for now, it was enough to be Eliza, teacher, organizer, survivor, free to choose, free to build, free to become whoever I decided to be. The snow had stopped, and through my window, stars scattered across the endless sky like promises waiting to be claimed. Spring arrived early that year, melting the snow and revealing the green beneath. I stood in the doorway of the Women's Aid Society, now officially chartered as the Red Mesa Women's Refuge and Education Center, watching my students file in for morning lessons. 6 months had passed since Victor's death, 6 months of building and teaching and slowly remembering who I was beneath the scar tissue. Ah, Mrs. Hale. Sarah Jennings called, one of my first students who now helped teach the younger girls. The new desk arrived from Denver. I smiled at the Mrs. Hale. Some habits died hard. Though legally I'd reclaimed my maiden name, Elizabeth Hart. Eliza Hart. It felt like meeting an old friend after years apart. The center had flourished beyond our wildest hopes. We now occupied 2 buildings, the original parsonage and the empty storefront next door, donated by a merchant whose daughter we'd helped escape an unwanted engagement. 23 women attended classes regularly, learning everything from basic letters to advanced bookkeeping. We'd placed 7 in paying positions around town. "Letter for you, Eliza." Clara appeared with the Morning Post. "Looks official." I opened it, scanning quickly, then had to read it again. "It's from the Colorado Board of Education. They're offering to certify our teaching program. We could issue recognized diplomas." Clara grabbed my hands, dancing us both in a circle. "Oh, this changes everything. Real credentials, the girls could apply for positions anywhere." As we celebrated, I caught sight of a familiar figure through the window. Rye stood by his wagon, clearly hesitating. We'd maintained careful distance these past months, he attending to the ranch, me to the center. Our interactions limited to polite exchanges when I returned to cook for the hands twice weekly. "Go on," Clara said softly. "The mourning period's over. Eliza, you're allowed to live again." I stepped onto the boardwalk, spring air sweet with possibility. "Mr. Prescott, Miss Hart." He'd taken to using my reclaimed name with careful precision. "I heard the good news about the certification. Congratulations." News travels fast. "It's a small town." He shifted, uncharacteristically nervous. "I actually came to... that is, I wondered if you might..." He stopped, took a breath, and started again. "Would you take a ride with me? There's something I'd like to show you." I glanced back at Clara, who made shooing motions. "I suppose the center can spare me for an hour." We rode in companionable silence through town and beyond, taking a track I didn't recognize. The mountains stood clear against the sky, purple with distance and promise. Finally. Rye stopped the wagon at the top of a rise. Below us stretched a small valley, sheltered and green. A creek wound through it, cottonwoods budding along its banks. In the center sat a partially built structure stone foundation, wooden frame reaching skyward. "What is this?" I asked, though something in my chest already knew. "It's yours if you want it." He wrapped the reins around the brake, choosing words carefully. 40 acres, good water, close enough to town for your work but private. I bought it last month." "Rye, let me finish." He turned to face me fully. "I'm not trying to buy you or cage you or any fool thing like that. This is yours free and clear, regardless. But I hoped..." He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. "I hoped you might consider sharing it with me." My hands flew to my mouth. Inside the box nestled a simple gold band with a single small sapphire, nothing like the ostentatious ring Victor had used to mark his ownership. "I know you've had your fill of marriage." Rye continued. "Know you've built a life that doesn't require a husband, but I'm not looking for a wife to control or own. I'm looking for a partner, someone to build something with. The ranch is successful enough we could expand, maybe raise horses alongside cattle. And this place," he gestured to the valley, "it could be a real school. Dormitories for girls who need shelter while they learn. Gardens to teach cultivation alongside arithmetic." I found my voice. "You've thought about this." "Done nothing but think about it for 6 months." His smile was rueful. "Malcolm's threatened to throw me in the horse trough if I don't stop mooning about and actually ask." "And if I say no, if I need more time?" "Then you have more time. The land's still yours either way. Build your school, live your life. I'll be here if and when you're ready. Or not. If that's your choice, your freedom matters more than my hopes." I looked at the ring, at the man offering it, at the valley spread below like a canvas waiting for dreams. 6 months ago, I'd have run from this, too broken to trust anything that looked like love. But I wasn't that woman anymore. Yes, I said simply. Yes to the land or yes to I kissed him, answering without words. When we finally parted, both breathless, I saw my own joy reflected in his eyes. We'll do it right this time, I said. A real courtship, Sunday dinners, chaperoned walks, the whole proper thing. And when we marry, it'll be as equals. I keep my work at the center. We make decisions together, and Eliza. He cupped my face gently, thumb tracing where bruises once bloomed. We'll do it however you want, however makes you feel safe and respected and free. 3 months later, on a perfect July morning, we married in the meadow beside our half-built house. Not in the church where I'd fought for my freedom, but under the endless sky with wildflowers for decoration and our chosen family as witness. Clara stood as my matron of honor. Sheriff Mercer, now a friend, gave me away. The women from the center filled the meadow with their presence and their hope. Even Mrs. Weatherby came, bringing a quilt she'd sewn with her mother's patterns. Harrison officiated, having gotten himself ordained for the occasion. When he asked who gave this woman to be married, Jonah answered firmly, "She gives herself, freely and with joy." The vows we spoke were ones we'd written together, promises not of ownership, but of partnership, not of obedience, but of mutual respect. When Rye slipped the ring onto my finger, it felt like a blessing rather than a binding. Our first dance was to Tommy's fiddle playing, there in the grass with the mountains watching. As we swayed together, Rye whispered, "No regrets." "Only one," I whispered back. "That it took so long to get here. Worth the wait, though." I thought of everything: the fear, the flight, the fights, the freedom hard won, the bruises healed and the strength found, the women who now had refuge because I'd learned to stand. The man who'd shown me love could be gentle. Worth everything, I said, meaning it. The school opened that September, a proper building with dormitories and classrooms and gardens where girls learned to grow food alongside confidence. We called it Hope House. And by Christmas, we had 12 resident students and dozens more who came for day classes. Rye built desks and fixed roofs and never once complained when I spent long nights preparing lessons. He celebrated our victories: the first girl to gain employment in Denver, the widow who opened her own shop, the young woman who went on to Territorial Normal School to become a teacher herself. Our own joy came quieter but no less profound. I learned to be a wife without losing myself, and Rye learned to be a husband without needing to control. We disagreed sometimes about money, about expansion plans, about whether to buy horses or stick with cattle, but we worked through it as partners, neither voice drowning out the other. 2 years after our wedding, I stood again on that ridge where Rye had first touched my cheek with such reverence. This time, I wasn't alone. Our daughter Hope, of course, rode in a sling against my chest, barely 3 months old and already fascinated by the wide world. "She'll be a rider like her mother," Rye said, watching our daughter's eyes track a soaring hawk. "And a dreamer like her father," I added. We'd built our life like a quilt piece by piece, stitching together work and love, freedom and commitment, past pain and future promise. The Women's Center thrived in town under Clara's able management, while I split my time between it and Hope House. The ranch prospered with both cattle and a small herd of horses that Rye trained with endless patience. It wasn't a fairy tale. Some nights I still woke with my heart racing, remembering some days the work felt too hard, the progress too slow. Victor's shadow lingered in the women who came to us bearing familiar bruises, familiar fears. But every morning, I woke to gentleness. Every evening, I came home to partnership. Every day, I watched women discover their own strength, their own possibilities. "What are you thinking?" Rye asked, pulling me from my reverie. "About circles," I said. "How things come round. That first night in the saloon, I thought my life was ending, but it was just beginning. Best investment I ever made, standing up in that saloon." "Investment?" I raised an eyebrow. "Sure," He grinned, the expression taking years off his weathered face. Got myself the best cook in the territory, a business partner for the horse operation, and a wife who can organize anything from a cattle drive to a political campaign. Pure profit. I swatted his arm, laughing. Hope gurgled, catching our joy. As we rode back toward home, our real home, built by choice rather than circumstance, I thought about the woman I'd been scared, trapped, certain that love meant ownership and marriage meant cage. I'd been wrong. Love could mean freedom when given right. Marriage could mean partnership when chosen freely. And sometimes, the ending of one story was just the beginning of another, better tale. The sun set behind us, painting our valley gold. Ahead, smoke rose from our chimney where Sarah Jennings was watching the younger girls, teaching them to read from the same primers I'd once used. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, always did. But tonight, I was simply Eliza Hart Prescott, teacher, mother, partner, survivor, free. And that, as I'd learned, was everything. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to hear where you're enjoying this tale. Please share in the comments below where you're listening from so we can connect and share our thoughts together. If you enjoyed this Wild West love story, please subscribe to Wild West Night. Give this video a like, and don't forget to hit the hype button to help more people discover these stories of courage, love, and redemption in the American frontier. Your support means everything.